Well, welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Mark Hanf and Nam Phan of Pacific Private Money. Hopefully, Patty Cohen will be able to join us later on in the show. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia questions for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during the show. That certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon, with 2 locations in San Francisco and one in Marin. And again, today's trivia theme is random trivia. Mark, tell us what is going on in real estate.
Well, it's, another exciting week of shelter in place and on again, off again, business startups and business stoppages. And it's actually really sad what's happening, in the Bay Area and in California. Governor Newsom, of course, this week announced the closure again of a number of businesses that were all set to reopen. And what's really sad about that is that, the amount of money that many of those businesses spent to prepare themselves with, plastic and plexiglass separators and, and all of the money that they spent while they're not making money, spending money so they can reopen, only to be told that they have to shut down indefinitely again. And it's just, it's really disconcerting and unfortunate. But meanwhile, the three of us live in a universe where we work every day in the mortgage and real estate industry, and you wouldn't know that based on some of the articles I'm going to share with the audience today, you wouldn't know that we're in the midst of a pandemic and that businesses are dying on the vine left and right, because the real estate industry and the mortgage industry are both on fire right now in mid-July. And I'm going to start out by sharing what pretty much most of you listening probably are aware, because this is headline news. Average U.S. mortgage rates fall below 3% for the first time ever.
Really?
Ever.
Wow.
So, I've talked with several people who are in contract for 30-year mortgages at below 3%. And of course, if you're willing to do like a 10-1 ARM or 7-1 ARM, you can find 2.85, 2 3/4. I mean, it's just dirt cheap. I mean, I just completed finally. It took almost 4 months, but I completed my home refi and I got 3% interest only on a jumbo loan, and I just thought that was fabulous. It almost feels like free money based on the yields that we pay on funds from our investors. We're paying nearly 8% to our investors for their deposited capital, and here I'm got a jumbo loan I'm paying 3% on. Like I said, it feels like it's almost free. But so the Federal Reserve, has continued to support the mortgage markets by purchasing about almost $5 billion a day of securities containing home mortgages packaged by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae. And that's really why rates are dropping. The Fed's been buying mortgage-backed securities even more than treasuries. And these Fed purchases are the main reason for the record lows we're seeing in mortgage rates. And, this is really good news because, again, and this is just, the rest of the article talks about, the obvious benefits of super low mortgage rates. Record lows in mortgage rates will incentivize more households to refinance, putting more money in the pockets to support consumer spending. And then when you consider all the components of the economy that are not growing, that means that households are going to carry the economy for the next couple of years in the form of consumption and retail. So, obviously this particular author is predicting that, the wave of refinances, which are happening yet again for, the umpteenth time in the last, 6 or 8 years, will continue to drive consumer spending, which really has been a major catalyst, in my opinion, in the 10-year growth of the economy prior to COVID.
And let me ask you,
go ahead.
Just ask you a quick question. So with a rash of refis, I got to think that if the banks are going to be really swamped with applications, there's still going to be some people who are going to need money faster. And so they'll end up coming to an alternative company like yours. Is that possible?
Well, so mortgage capital across the board is back in full swing. So there's an area of real estate financing that's referred to as non-agency or non-QM, which means non-qualified mortgage. Both of those are horrible names because the industry has not figured out what to call what used to be called subprime loans, right? Because there are no more subprime. Every loan you have to qualify for, but not everyone gets those prime 3% mortgages. Oftentimes, if you're self-employed or if you have difficulty proving income or you've got a hiccup in your credit, you're in this realm of non-agency, non-conforming, non-qualified mortgages, which were probably some of the most popular mortgages for several years running until COVID happened, and the securitization market for that froze up solid overnight, and those loans just completely stopped. And your only choices for home loans for the last several months until just recently were either banks or your conventional mortgage broker, or you had to go private money. And that's a huge swing. There's a big difference between 3 to 4% mortgage and a 8 to 9% mortgage. But the good news is that we've been putting off launching our new non-QM division for self-employed and other borrowers who don't quite qualify for the prime conventional. And in our weekly meeting this week, we learned from our partner in that new division that pretty much all of the non-QM lenders that were basically on fire up until March when COVID hit, your Quicken Loans and your Axos and your Greenbox and names that a lot of folks in the public wouldn't have heard about, but those of us in the industry are very much familiar with. Those pretty much all of them across the board are back lending again. And not only that, the rates when they first came back a few weeks ago were 6% and 5%. And now they're back down to 4%. So again, I think for most borrowers now, the mortgage market has opened up again, and I've got a little bit more about that to share with you as we continue on.
Yeah, you got to figure that the lower the interest rates, the more money people save, the more the economy is going to grow. Makes sense.
It's good all the way around.
Yep.
Yeah,
Builders love it.
Yep. First trivia question. Here's a little bit of a sort of an interesting question for you. First trivia question is, how many bends does a standard paperclip have? And no looking at any paperclips right now. All right, call 888.
Well, I unbend them all the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. How many do they bend? How many bends are there in a standard paperclip? Call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate. Don't touch that dial. The Best of Investing is going to be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hump and Mom Fawn. Unfortunately, Patty Cohen won't join us today, but she will be on in 2 weeks. So our first trivia question was, how many bends does a standard paperclip have?
I'm going to guess 6.
Now,
8.
No, it's only got 3.
3?
3, yeah. Think about it.
Are you counting the corners of the?
Well, just how many bends? It goes 1, 2, 3. That's it. I know. Too many science questions. Trick question. Yeah.
I'm gonna research that. That's not correct.
Don't research it. Just take a paper clip and unbend it. And you'll see how many bends it has.
6.
Yeah. That's not a standard one. You get funky paper clips. All right, Mark, you want to continue on with the article you were talking about?
Absolutely. So in addition to mortgage rates falling to 3% and below, now we've got, for the month of June, home sales exceeded pre-pandemic levels for the first time. And this really coincides with, of course, mortgage rates hitting another low. And so a few bullet points here from this article. Home sales were up 2% from pre-pandemic levels. And these are nationwide figures, by the way, but I know a lot of these echo in the Bay Area here. Up 2% from pre-pandemic levels and are predicted to likely continue rising. Pending home sales up 10% for the same period. Next bullet point, new list.
I got a question for you. If everyone's out of work, how are people able to qualify for a loan?
Well,
yeah, everyone.
Not everyone is.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, I've got a related article to that question. It's like, if everybody's out of work, who's buying these homes now? So anyway, new listings recovered to pre-pandemic levels for the third straight week. Nearly half of homes that sold during the week spent 2 weeks or less on the market.
Wow. That's fast.
That's making the market feel chaotic for buyers, which echoes what I'm hearing from a lot of real estate agents. They're all saying the market's just crazy insane right now. Low rates and low inventory pushed home sale prices up 7% year over year. Again, that's a national figure. I'm not really sure. I didn't double check what San Francisco was like. I'm guessing it's a little bit on the flatter side.
Yeah.
More than half of the Redfin offers, so this was a bullet point I got from Redfin, more than half of the Redfin offers faced bidding wars for a second consecutive month in June, including 58% of the San Francisco Bay Area were in bidding. And I know that's a Redfin number, but again, that reflects, I think, across the board. It's now in San Francisco, it's been common for bidding wars. I mean, it's usually in fact, not only in San Francisco, but a lot of realtors around the Bay Area have begun to copy over the last few years San Francisco practices of underpricing real estate to generate bidding wars, with the idea that maybe you'll bid it above the price you would have gotten if you had tried to predict what market value would be. So that's a San Francisco tradition. It hasn't been like that, multiple offers and bidding wars in other parts of the country. So this is a big shock for a lot of communities around the country where, you know, home inventory has fallen to kind of historic lows. So anyway, pretty interesting thing, bullet points there that would seem to suggest that, you know, real estate is very strong right now. Third article regarding real estate sales: more home buyers are buying homes sight unseen thanks to virtual tours.
That's amazing. And the thing is San Francisco still, like people were talking about last month about how with this COVID situation, people are realizing, you know what, I want to get out of the city. Is that still going on?
Yeah. Yes, yes, it is. And that's, you know, not really related to this particular bullet point, but, you know, tangentially, you've got people selling and moving out of the city, and you've got a lot of interest in single-family homes in the suburbs, homes with a lot of room and extra rooms. In fact, my daughter just was able to get a cheaper apartment. Her and her 4 roommates are moving from one apartment that was just rooms and a hallway and a very small kitchen to 5 rooms, a hallway, a great room, a big kitchen, and an outdoor area for less rent than they were paying before. So rents in the city are down, but they made the decision based on a really well done walkthrough with an iPhone of someone walking through slowly every single room. So it was a 10-minute video. I actually ended up watching the whole thing. I was fascinated by this. And while that's an example of a virtual tour, the homes that are selling based on virtual tours, these are much more sophisticated tours, and agents are spending a lot of money to be able to create these virtual tours.
Can they send in?
I just find it fascinating.
Can they send in little drones?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, all kinds of technologies.
That technology is getting better and better, and you're just going to see more people investing in that space, because that's just going to be really the wave of the future, for not only for buying a home, but, you know, people looking at commercial real estate. And so there's so many applications for that, and the fact that people are working remotely just makes it all more
I wouldn't have guessed if you had asked me if we would be buying real estate virtually, and it's really a pandemic response. I don't think it would have been an easy transition from live tours to virtual without something like this, without what we call a black swan event. But it will, you know, once something like this, once a new technology and a new methodology of sales, a new sales process starts to take hold,
could be the new norm.
Then more and more people will rely on this, and I just find it interesting.
What about the banks or appraisers? Are they also starting to say, yeah, sure, we'll go ahead and accept these kinds of appraisals, you know, done sight unseen?
I don't know how many appraisals are being done sight unseen. I mean, that's a completely different regulated industry. I think appraisers are still walking into the home. They're just walking in alone. So, and they're taking pictures. They're still going inside homes. So there's still some old tech at work here, but I just find it interesting that, you know, buying a home sight unseen is a very interesting concept.
Do you think this tech has staying power? Like once we get past this pandemic, do you think people will just go back to seeing homes, or does this
I don't know.
virtual tours kind of chip into that market?
No, I think it'll definitely have an impact because I think people realize, if you, especially for making an offer fairly quickly, you got.
Yes, that's exactly. I was going to say that exact same thing. Here's going to be the new norm. You got to get your offer in based on the virtual tour,
Yeah.
with one of the conditions being I got to actually see the place.
Sure.
So before it was, what are the conditions for this offer? Well, let's see. I got to sell my house. I got to get an appraisal. I got to get a contractor's inspection. I got to this.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be, and I got to see the place.
Yeah, but it still is the same spot that you took the pictures from. All right, guys, going to our next trivia question here. We'll see how well you know your Bible. What is the sixth commandment?
The sixth.
And it's not, thou shalt not pay an interest rate above 4%. Okay. What is the sixth commandment? Call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate, which I believe once the shelter in place is over, that should be able to be used. It's worth over $100. So don't touch that dial, but give us a call. Tell us, what is the sixth commandment? Stay with us. The Best of Investing is going to be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing one more time. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hoff and Nam Phan of Pacific Private Money. Second trivia question. I want to know how well you know your Bible. What is the sixth commandment?
Let's see. Thou shalt not covet your neighbor's wife?
No, but I'm going to kill you if you don't know this one.
Oh, thou shalt not kill.
Very good. Whoa, it's
I thought that was like the second one or the first one.
Hey, Edward, by the way, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bends.
There's none. I'm looking right at it. There's 3.
Try straightening it out. Count how many times you have to unbend it to straighten it out.
Oh, well, that's different. I guess we're looking at the curves on that. Mark, you have a couple more before we get into...
I do. I want to finish up this week's news because I got a couple more interesting nuggets, again, related to the real estate market. It's official. The U.S. will not see a housing bubble crash anytime soon. And according to this leading industry article, it says, at some point in the future, home prices will fall and sales will decline year over year. But even when this happens, it will not constitute a bubble crash, at least not anytime soon. Today we are on an upswing. The U.S. housing market is undergoing a V-shaped recovery, but until existing home sales hit 5.8 million again, and that's nationwide, the full recovery in existing home sales will not be complete, as was the number we hit, so it says earlier this year. So again, very, very interesting. We talked about on a couple of shows over the last few months how there was a segment of the marketplace that was kind of wishing the market to a 20 or 30% decline, much like we had in 2008, because again they were looking for opportunities to invest in real estate. They're going, okay, I got my cash ready. I'm going to go make those aggressive offers. I'm going to look for distress and take advantage of it. Not that there's not distress, because there's this distress in the marketplace, but it's few and far between, and you got to be really, really savvy in order to identify those. Last but not least was this article I thought was, I'm including it because not everything is all necessarily bright and shiny and good news in real estate. This one is titled The Exodus, a rise in remote working could crater expensive housing markets. Mm-hmm. Now, listeners to this show will recall that we've talked from time to time how we at Pacific Private Money as lenders have been nervous for now a couple of years on the price of Silicon Valley real estate. We've turned down a number of loan requests by people with property in Silicon Valley, because I've just been very uncomfortable feeling that maybe $2,000 a square foot is not a sustainable price, that it's artificially inflated based on a number of economic factors that are going on in Silicon Valley that I'm not sure have staying power, at least it's not where I want to bet my investor capital on. And what it's saying here is that employees are finding little reason to pay high rents to work in places like the Bay Area, why pay an arm and a leg to live near your Silicon Valley office if you don't need it anymore? That's what some highly paid tech workers are asking themselves. The coronavirus pandemic has forced remote working on scores of companies, and some have decided to embrace it. Some of their employees are taking it as an opportunity to escape the super high rents and home prices in the Bay Area. This according to Bloomberg, which again is definitely a reputable news source. So again, I'm not saying or predicting a decline or crash in home values in Silicon Valley, but I will say that you know, as a lender, I don't want to bet, it's certainly not for a long term, that, you know, when someone comes to me and say, hey, my house is worth, my 2,000 square foot house is worth $4 million. I've got a $2 million first. Would you lend me a $500,000 second? For me, that's a big no. I just don't believe, I don't want to be exposed to the, you know, to the upper echelons of loan to value based on what I think are kind of old metrics and that may not return.
And I want to make a couple of points. One is, if theoretically I'm going to start working from home, I think I'd want to make sure that I had a nice home. You know, a lot nicer than, because if I'm going to spend a lot more time there, I'm going to look for a house that's going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit nicer. So potentially that might help keep values up, maybe not astronomical. But the other part of it is too, I think what's going to happen is that a lot of employers, let's say like Twitter, are saying, oh yeah, now we realize you can work from home and no problem. I think what's going to happen is people are, you know, when in the first couple of weeks or month or whatever, you know, you're really efficient, you're quote going to work and all that at your house. And eventually what happens is, you know, yeah, okay, well, I won't get dressed today. I'll stay in my pajamas. And, you know, well, my employer know I'm really keystroking, you know, blah, blah, blah. And you know, 8 hours becomes 7, becomes 6. And I think they're going to find the productivity is going to go down. And they're going to end up saying, you know what, come back to work. When they're allowed to really come back to work, you know, forgetting COVID for a minute.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, right now you're seeing, I'm seeing news articles where people are moving out of San Francisco. And in fact, our deal of the week this week is exactly that. It was a family where they were sheltering in place at their home in San Francisco, but it was a small, I think 600 square foot apartment.
Yeah, that's small.
And they just got burned out on being, you know, getting claustrophobic. So they made a purchase in Novato using our bridge loan, and they had so much equity in their San Francisco property that they were able to make a loan. We were able to provide a loan to them at 100% of the purchase price. But they're moving to Novato. Other people are moving to other outskirts of the Bay Area, like Sonoma County. So I think you're going to see more and more of that. But what's that going to do to home prices in Novato? Probably impact them to the positive.
You know, Novato is one of the sleepiest, you know, best kept secrets in real estate in the Bay Area, in my opinion. Now, and we know this because we actually, you know, our office is here. I lived here for 20 years before I moved a little bit south, and you can still buy a really nice home for $500 and $600 a square foot. Now compare that to $2,000 and more in Silicon Valley. Yeah. So if you don't need to drive to work, and you could, you know, as a tech worker, you could move your family to a home where $1 million still buys you a, you know, built in the last 15 years, very spacious home. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. Good opportunity. I suggest if you haven't checked out Novato, check it out.
Okay, when we come back, we've got an interesting email for you. So here's our third trivia question. Which Batman villain bases all of his decisions on the flip of a special coin? Call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate. That's our trivia question. Which Batman villain bases all of his decisions on the flip of a special coin? Stay with us. The Best of Investing is going to be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Edward Brown here, along with Mark Hanf and Nam Phan of Pacific Private Money. Third trivia question. You got to know your Batman for this one. Which Batman villain bases all of his decisions on the flip of a special coin? Yes.
Two-Face.
Two-Face. That's right. Very good. Tommy Lee Jones.
He had a two-headed coin.
Too bad.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, he always got it right.
There you go. Okay, so an email comes in from a listener. It says, I guess this one for you, Mark. It says, you've mentioned that Pacific Private Money is one of the few lenders licensed in California to offer owner-occupied bridge loans. Why isn't there more competition in that part of the market?
Yeah, that's, you know, if that's probably, you know, if there were like the top 3 questions that we get as lenders, you know, asking about our industry, that's certainly one of them. You know, that's right next to who would pay 9% for money. With mortgage rates of 3%, who on God's green earth would ever pay 9% for a mortgage? Well, you know, and we've talked about that at length. So this question is an interesting one in that. I'm sorry, Edward.
Consumer. Why would somebody, or why, you know, why aren't there more owner-occupied lenders?
Yeah.
So it's a licensing issue, and what happened in as a result of the mortgage meltdown in 2008, it took a few years, but Congress finally got around to passing the Dodd-Frank mortgage reforms. And that was like about a 2,000-page bill that passed Congress, which resulted in thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of new regulations restricting mortgage lending, so that we would never again have that type of, you know, marketplace where anybody who could fog a mirror could get a mortgage. You know, the liar loans and all the other stuff that was going on that you know, cratered the economy in 2008. So Dodd-Frank passed a number of restrictions, and among those had to do with, it impacted the hard money lenders as well. And it's really around owner-occupied homes. And so what Dodd-Frank did was it divided the mortgage marketplace into 2 segments: consumer purpose, not consumer loans, but consumer purpose financing, and business purpose financing. So for example, if you got a lot of equity in your home and you want to borrow money to start a business, that's a business purpose. And those are largely, I won't say unregulated, but the regulations are much easier to borrow against. And hard money lenders and private lenders don't have to have any special licensing to make a loan on someone's residence if it's a business purpose. And of course, another business purpose or investment purpose loan would be, you know, buying a property to fix and flip, you know, or buying, you know, buying a home that you intend to, you know, remodel and sell. Same thing, fix and flip. So, or buying a business, right? So, but a consumer purpose would be borrowing against property you own, including your primary residence, for debt consolidation, pay taxes, pay your property taxes, income taxes, pay for school, pay for marriage, wedding, any kind of personal use, actually even to remodel your home. We get a lot of people who say, hey, I need a second to remodel my home and then put it on the market. Well, that is still a consumer purpose because it's on your primary residence. And hard money lenders can't make consumer purpose loans unless they have not only additional licensing. They set up this thing called the licensed mortgage originator. And so many of the folks in this industry just elect not to get that additional licensing because you have to, you know, take courses and then take several tests. You got to get a bond. It's just, there's a number of things involved on that. And then you also have to have the right software for disclosures. You got to get a hold of your attorney to give you the underwriting guidelines so you know how to calculate whether or not the borrower has the ability to afford those monthly payments. So there's a whole laundry list, which I won't bore the audience to tears with, that you have to abide by in order to make consumer purpose loans. So the low-hanging fruit for private lenders are business purpose loans. So 90%, if not 95%, of California private money / hard money lenders elect not to make any loan that's consumer purpose. They run the opposite direction. And so that leaves the market for consumer purpose loans, which is a significant market. It leaves it open for those of us in this industry who said, well, we'll just invest the time, the money, the education, the software, the human resources to be able to make those loans. And they're an important part of the loan volume that we do at Pacific Private Money. In fact, I think our pipeline today, which for July exceeds the record size for the history of the company. We're at like 35 million. We've only been over 30 million once before in the history of our company. And half of that $35 million in pipeline loan volume are consumer purpose loans, most of them purchase money bridge loans that we're making for people who want to buy real estate in this competitive marketplace. So again, it's really a niche industry, which within a niche industry, because private lending is a niche all by itself. And so within private lending, there's very few. In fact, in the entire Bay Area, I'm only aware of 5 lenders, including ourselves, that can legally do, and I say legally because it doesn't stop the companies that are flying under the radar that don't care what the laws are, but that there's 5 companies that I'm aware of that legally make consumer purpose private money loans for folks who have need to borrow money against their primary residence.
And how do people get a hold of you if they are interested in these kind of loans?
Well, they go to pacificprivatemoney.com. We've put a lot of energy into updating recently our website, so we've got a lot of information there, new information at pacificprivatemoney.com. We're here in the Bay Area, of course, and we're in the 415. Just call us anytime for quick answers to your questions. We're at 415-883-2150. That's 415-883-2150.
Right.
If I can add, Mark was mentioning that there's a lot more content on Pacific Private Money's website. For people who are interested in investing, they should go to the Invest page because we've made so many updates to that. There's now 4 ways to invest where, just a few months ago there were 2. So we've added 2 more ways to invest, and we'll get into that maybe in the next segment.
The next segment.
Yeah, and one of them being privatemoneyloans.com. That's been available to investors as an option for several years now, and that's for trustee investing, but we recently updated it. So there's more features on there for investors who are interested in individual deeds of trust, but we're also putting all of the various funds that we have available on private money loans as well. So you'll see it all in one place.
Very good.
So just go to www.privatemoneyloans.com, and that's wholly owned by Pacific Private Money.
And they could register for free. It's always nice if you can peruse, see what you got available for sale.
Exactly. And then if you see something you like, you can hit pledge and let us know what how much you intend to invest. It's not an obligation. It's not binding. And then we would share the due diligence with you. And if you like it, you can move forward with an investment.
It's also a place you can see our funds. We have 2 of our 3 existing funds on there right now. We'll have all 3 of them on there shortly. But that was a new feature that was added to the back end of that website. So privatemoneyloans.com.
All right, stay with us. The Best of Investing will be right back with some closing comments.
Good.
Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hanf and Nam Phan of Pacific Private Money. No trivia question for the last segment, but Mark and Nam, tell us a little bit about what's going on in the fund. How do people invest? What kind of yields are you paying? All that fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, which fund are you talking about?
Primary. With the primary, the flagship fund, as you say.
Yes.
Pacific Private Money
Fund.
It's got, what, 6 million in it?
Yeah, 60 million, and 7 years into it now. So June was the anniversary date of 7th year. So now we've entered the 8th year of the fund's existence, and we are, as you pointed out, at about 60 million, about 76 loans in the fund, and up to almost 210 investors. So no, it's doing well. The Pacific Private Money Fund, as I mentioned, is our primary vehicle or our primary fund for funding loans to borrowers. Portfolio turns over every few months. We have a few new loans coming in and a few loans paying off. Currently, it's paying about 7.5% annualized, and that's distributed. It's been historically in the 7.5% to 8% range, and three qualifications to invest in the fund, and that's number one, investors do need to be accredited. That it means having $1 million net worth or outside of your primary residence. You can also qualify on income, and that income requirement is being able to show $200,000 a year in income, or $300,000 as a couple. And then the final qualification is the investment, which is a $50,000 minimum investment, 1 year hold. If you add to your investments over, let's say, 6 months into it, there's no new lockup on your additional capital. It would just go back to the original date that you invested. So let's say you've invested first in January and then added in June, you'd have 6 months remaining on the additional funds that you invested in June. We'll probably have another fund event. We'll probably do it either late August or September. The last one we did was actually just last month, and it was pretty well attended. But you know, people were primarily interested in saying, okay, what's happened with the fund since COVID?
Yeah.
And you know, that was the first event we had in April, was fresh off the heels of sheltering in place. But as Mark said in the first couple of segments, we're really busy. Loan volume has picked up a lot. The loans that we tend to prefer for the fund, bridge loans, are really dominating our loan portfolio or pipeline right now of loans. We have so many people who want to take advantage of this real estate market, and they're finding the bridge loan is their tool to compete against all cash. So, you know, these are the types of loans that we'll be putting in the fund, or continue to put in the fund, and we're continuing to take on new investors. Interesting, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen people go from sitting on the sidelines wondering what's going to happen with the COVID investments, with the stock market, and we've just seen actually probably this in combination between the Pacific Private Money Fund, the North Star Capital Fund, and the Freedom Fund, probably our strongest 4 weeks of new investor capital that we've seen in the last 12
nice.
months.
There's no fee to get in, no fee to get out. That's a nice thing, and there will be no load. All right, give out your information one more time, and then we're going to cut for our thoughts today.
Yeah, you can give us a call at 415-883-2150, or go to our website, www.pacificprivatemoney.com.
All right, and here's our thoughts for the day. Did you know the first computer dates back to Adam and Eve? It was an Apple with limited memory, just 1 byte. And then everything crashed. And so two rednecks they meet on a dusty country road. One of them is carrying a big bag labeled chickens. Chickens, eh? Says one guy. Hey, if I guess how many chickens you got, will you give me one? Heck, says the guy with the bag. If you guess right, I'll give both of them to you. And then the other scratches his head and says, is it 5?
Oh, no.
All right, with that thought, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more prizes and also probably having more fun with jokes here and answering more trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.